Hello and welcome to this video. Today I would like to talk about a little pack of cards, called the Creative Whack Pack. And it's actually designed by a chap called Roger von Oech. This was brought out in the early 90s and I've been using it since then, really. As part of my whole sort of psychological development, etc., and obviously then in the last decade or so, the qualifications and such like in NLP and psychology. Again, I started those back in mid-90s. I started and I finished and completed a whole series of different psychological programs, and got my full qualifications then in NLP as a master practitioner in 2007. So where does this come in and what is this about? These are actually really good for bringing out your creativity. They're very useful for shifting things, for shifting ideas, and for shifting things that are going on up here that are possibly stuck. And this is something that everyone comes across. I mean, anyone who is got their own business, anyone who is trying to do something and create something, thinking of building, creating something, creating an online shop, designing your website, doing all of those things. Typically things that have to do with kind of the logic, the stuff that goes on up here, and a little bit of what goes on in the heart, the passion bit, the bit that's kind of sometimes the driving force behind doing something is the passion. But when you're working on what you love the most, sometimes you can hit brick walls, as it were. You can get blocks. You can start thinking to yourself that you've got insurmountable problems, and that everything's working against you, or that you've got the passion, you've got the ideas, but you don't know how to pull them all together. And that's where this deck comes in quite handily. This is just another tool that I have used to work with people to help move things on. Now, they're cards, okay? It's a deck of cards, and it's actually not that dissimilar from tarot cards. I do tarot card readings, and again, this is just a tool. All of these things are just tools. There's no magic involved in any of this. If anything, it's pretty much all psychology and intuition. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, tarot card readers are psychologists that are helping people to use their intuition in order to help the querent or the person that's got the problem to find the answer. You see, the answer is there within, it's up here. It's in fact actually in your subconscious. You already know what the answers are. They're just not in the front part. They're not in the conscious competence bit. And so what I find is, after working with someone, helping them through issues or trying to work things out for themselves, to help people find the answers within themselves, helping people to sort out their world and make sense of it, hence our tagline. That's what it's all about. And it doesn't really matter whether it's using meditation, using tarot card readings, helping someone to learn about themselves using astrology, or using the techniques in NLP and other forms of psychotherapy. All these things are just tools, and that's where this comes from. That's what this is about. And this Roger von Oech, I think that's his, as pronouncing it. That's where this comes in. This is just another tool. And there is a thing called a reading that is in the actual manual. And what I've done is I've actually designed a little card that kind of just, they suggest that you pick 5 cards like you would a tarot card reading, and that each of the cards represents something. And the things that they represent are, working from left to right, the environment, mirror, shadow, caution, and power. Now, each of those cards, working from left to right, the environment card, it represents external forces surrounding your concept. What other people and issues have a bearing on your concept? So whatever card comes up, and so you would shuffle the deck like you would do tarot cards, and then pick 5 cards and lay them out from left to right. And then you would read the cards. Now, each of the cards, if I don't know if I can show you this, but each of the cards has got a representation of, the heading up here, which is see the obvious. And so, you've got a representation here of a looks like a dog or a cat, pulling the scalp back so that they can see things. And then underneath it's got the the wording about that particular card, which is quite useful. And then within the deck there are 4 suits, and each of those 4 suits represent 4 different areas. So you've got the Explorer. You start off with the Explorer suit, then you've got the Artist suit, then you've got the Judge suit, and then you have the Warrior suit. And there is quite a lot of similarity to tarot decks, but as there are with a lot of these things, these things really, really work. So the Mirror card, it represents the sources or the resources within you. What should you be tapping into? You see, and so depending on which card you have in that position, that's a good piece of advice. The third card is the Shadow card. This represents what may be hidden from you. What aren't you seeing? Again, quite apt. The fourth card is the Caution card. This represents things to watch out for. What should you be aware of? And then the last card is the Power card, which is kind of, in relation to most tarot card readings, is kind of the outcome. This is what you need to do to have a positive outcome to the question you've asked for. What do you really need to do now? So typically, somebody will be looking for advice on something. These cards are not really geared towards relationships and love-related type things. They're more geared to work and the sort of the thought processes behind projects and work and situations and things like that, rather than emotional and love-based stuff. So we're probably talking, in comparison to the tarot deck, we're probably talking that these are more geared towards everything but the cups. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The swords, the pentacles, and the wands, where they're about action, thoughts, and lifestyle and money and all of that kind of thing. Whereas these cards don't really work particularly well with the emotional side and the passion side, although there is an element of those in there. So yeah, I mean, they're split up into 4 suits, and the person would ask, you'd ask the querent or your client to ask a question, and it would be very, very similar to a question or a querent that a client would ask you about using when using the tarot cards. And then you would shuffle the cards and you would pick out the 5 cards in a reading, and then you would read them, and it's actually quite simple. It's not quite as intuitive related, because if you like, the information that you need is actually to read here, which is actually really good for the client because they read that themselves, and then of course it would help them to kickstart or give them a whack on the side of the head, which is the tagline for these cards, which I quite like. Sometimes this is what people require. I've been in that situation, and that's when I tend to use the cards for myself. Is you sometimes just need a kick up the backside, to put it bluntly, or a whack across the head, in order to just shift things. This is what a lot of NLP is about. It's about shifting things. People become stagnant. Sometimes you can feel like you're surrounded, that you can't find your way out, or you're blindfolded, or for whatever reason you can't make decisions. And so, it's just another tool, and I just wanted to really share that, as something else that we provide for our clients. Again, they're very, very adaptable, very flexible, and so hopefully you found that useful, and I shall see you again soon in another video.